If you have a Bible, I want to invite you to turn with me to Psalm 139. Psalm 139. Please feel free to use the Pew Bible from in front of you or the table of contents if you need to find Psalm 139. This is an incredible psalm, very packed with beautiful theology and poetry. So we're going to split it into two. This week we're going to cover verses 1 through 16, and then next week we'll finish with verses 17 to 24. So let's go ahead and read together Psalm 139, starting in verse 1. These are the words of the living and true God. O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from afar. You search out my path and my lying down and are acquainted with all my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, behold, O Lord, you know it all together. You hem me in, behind and before, and lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high. I cannot attain it. Where shall I go from your spirit? Or where shall I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, and the light about me be night, even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is bright as the day, for darkness is as light with you. For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none of them. The word of the Lord. Sort of give you a roadmap of where we're going. I want to show you the 3 points that we'll be looking at this morning, and they'll be on the screen for you. And don't worry, I'm going to give you definitions for all of these. The first one is the omniscience of God. The second one is the omnipresence of God. And the third one is the hand of God in creation. Omniscience, omnipresence, and the hand of God in creation. And by God's grace and his spirit, that's what we'll see in the text this morning. So first, let's look at the omniscience of God. That's probably not a word that you use every day, so I want to give you a definition to hold on to you. The short and technical definition is this, and it'll be on the screen for you. The omniscience of God refers to God's perfect and eternal knowledge of all things. God's perfect and eternal knowledge of all things. By perfect, I mean that it lacks nothing. And by eternal, I mean it's unchanging. God's knowledge lacks nothing and it's unchanging. Or to put it even more simply, God knows everything. Past, present, future, every thought, every action, every moment, every molecule, God knows it all. Now you might ask how God knows everything, and for one, it's because he's God. But there's a very important difference between our knowledge and God's knowledge. See, God never learns. God never ever learns. He has never once learned anything. If he did learn something, his knowledge wouldn't be complete. But his knowledge is always and has always been perfect. It's not that he's not able to learn, but there's literally nothing for him to learn. He is all knowing about everything at all times forever. Theologian A.W. Tozer once said, God has never learned and cannot learn. If God could gain knowledge, he would cease to be God. It's an amazing and glorious truth about God that ties directly to this passage. From eternity past to eternity future, God knows all things at all times. He knows every star in the universe, and he calls them all by name. He knows every single grain of sand on every beach, across every coastline, in every country. Before God even created light in Genesis chapter 1, he knew exactly how the world would end in Revelation 22. And here's the thing, when we talk about God's omniscience, it might feel a little far off or distant. We can admire it or stand in awe of it, but when God's omniscience is directly aimed at you, that's when it becomes deeply personal. Now, it's not just some theological truth, but it actually changes the way that we live our lives and how we relate to this God who knows everything. Verse 1 says this, O Lord, you have searched me and known me. This is a psalm of David, and you can tell that it's very personal for David. He's not just saying some theological matter of fact about God. He's talking about himself. You have searched me, and you have known me. And that word searched is a little bit deeper in the original Hebrew. It's actually a legal term that a judge would use when he examines every single part of a case. Think about a judge leaving no stone unturned. And that's God looking at every part of your life. There's nothing off the record with him. Nothing is hidden from him. And that word known is the same word for covenant relationship. This is the knowing of a father who is deeply knowledgeable of his child. I've had our son Josiah now for 2 weeks, and I know the difference between a hungry cry and a cry when he's getting his diaper changed and he hates it. But there is a giant difference between those two cries. And in this context, David is saying, God, you didn't just casually glance at me. You searched every part of my life. Every motive, every hidden corner, God knows him completely. And God has examined you in that same way. He's looked into every single part of your life. Every secret, every doubt, every hidden sin. He knows exactly who you are. The next verses go into more detail. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from afar. You search out my path and my lying down and are acquainted with all my ways. These are everyday, ordinary actions, things we don't even remember or think about at all. Sitting, standing, lying down, speaking. They don't stand out to us, but God knows each and every one of them. And verse 4 shows that his knowledge is different. Even before a word is on my tongue, behold, O Lord, you know it all together. Before you even think a thought, before you even speak a word, God already sees it all fully. Think about the weight of that truth. Imagine if right now, on these screens behind me, We started displaying all of your thoughts from just this past week. How quickly would you rush out of this room in shame? If we're honest, we would all run out as fast as possible because we are broken, fallen, sinful people. But, church, God sees all of that all the time. Nothing is hidden from him. He knows every single one of your thoughts, your true desires. He knows you fully, even the darkest parts of you. And yet, here's the amazing part. He still loves you. The all-knowing God who sees the worst parts of you has chosen not to run away from you, but to move toward you. God's omniscience doesn't push him away from you. It draws him near, not because you deserve it, but because he's full of mercy. How much do we try to hide from people so that they'll like us more? We think that we have to hide our true thoughts or feelings. We think that if they actually knew this about me, or if they knew that, then they might think I'm too weird, or they might never talk to me again, or they might not like me anymore. So we have to hide all of it or put up some sort of front. And here's the truth that the Bible shows us: God already knows all of those things about you. There is no hiding from God. There is no fooling him. There's no making him think that you're someone that you're not. God sees everything about you, and you have not scared him away. He hasn't rejected you. He hasn't said you're too sinful or too gross or too weird or too quirky. He loves you anyway. It is dangerously easy to hide from your spouse, your kids, your friends, your pastor. But you can't hide anything from the God who knows all. You can't hide anything from the only one who matters the most. I'm sure we've all had times in our lives where we felt misunderstood or misrepresented, maybe falsely accused, or someone assumed bad motives, or they thought the worst of you, or maybe someone twisted your words or even lied about you. But here's the flip side to God's omniscience also. God knows your heart. He knows your true intentions. He knows the truth when no one else does. We can trust God to defend us, to fight for us, to comfort us. No matter what anyone else thinks, God knows the truth about us. Verse 5. You hem me in behind and before, and lay your hand upon me. To be hemmed in by God's hand is for him to draw you close. And it's a picture of comfort. A picture of a father wrapping his arms around a crying child, saying, I'm here. I've got you. You're safe. David is saying God surrounds him, not in anger, but in protection. God knows everything, including what we go through in this life. He knows exactly how you feel, exactly what you need. His hand isn't on you like in Psalm 32. It's not a hand of weight. Here, David wasn't experiencing the weight of his sin, but it was a hand of lifting, a hand of comfort. Just 5 verses in, and you might wonder how we even respond to a God like this. And David relates to that. Verse 6. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high. I cannot attain it. This isn't David just intellectually giving up. This is him bowing down before God. He's not saying, I don't get it, I give up. He's saying, I am in awe of God. It's a heart posture of worship. Church, there's no other God like this. Every false religion worships a God that's limited, a God that needs something, a God that learns. Our God is different. He's the all-knowing God who sees and loves his people perfectly. And he chooses, hear this closely, church, he chooses to know you. He chose to set his love on you. Not because of anything that you did, not because of anything good in you, but purely because of his mercy and his grace. It's because it's who he is. And isn't this exactly what we see in the gospel? God saw your sin. He saw all of your sin laid before him. Every wrong that you would ever do on your head. And he still sent Jesus to the cross to pay the price for every single one of those sins. That's God's omniscience in the gospel. Jesus took every ugly, shameful thought, every hidden sin, every rebellion, and he nailed it to the cross 2,000 years ago. God knew exactly who you are, how you would mess up, and he chose to save you anyway. How could any of us ever doubt his love? The same God who knows everything about you is the same God who gave everything for you. And in verses 7 through 12, we see our second point, the omnipresence of God. And this needs a definition too. Whenever the Bible teaches about God's omnipresence, it's simply saying that God is everywhere at all times. And there's a definition for you on the screen. There is no place in all creation where God's power, presence, and authority is outside of his reach. Sometimes people mistakenly think that omnipresence means that God is in everything. That God is in the trees, he's in the river, he's in the rocks, he's in inanimate objects. That's not what we're saying at all. The omnipresence of God means that there's no place in all of creation that is outside of his reach. No matter where you are, God is already there. He's already at work. There's not a single square centimeter in this entire universe that escapes his gaze. Verse 7, where shall I go from your spirit? Or where shall I flee from your presence? This is a rhetorical question. David isn't actually trying to run away from God. He's saying that even if he tried, even if he wanted to hide from God, he couldn't do it. It's impossible. It's as if he's saying, God, even if I wanted to get away from you, where could I possibly go? There's not a single place in all of creation that is outside of the presence of God. To give you an extreme example of this, one place where people don't understand this is when it comes to hell. A lot of times you'll hear someone say something like, hell is the place where you're separated from God forever. And I completely understand the sentiment. There's a little bit of truth in that, but it's almost as though they think that God is not able to do anything in hell. Or they might think of Satan as being the ruler of hell with a giant throne and a pitchfork. And that Satan is the true God of hell, but that is not the case at all. The presence of God is still in hell. And this is the picture that we see in verse 8. If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. Now, to be clear, Sheol isn't necessarily hell. Sheol is the place of the dead in the Old Testament. It includes both the righteous and the wicked. It includes the deepest depths that you could ever imagine. So by extension, it includes hell also. And David is saying, even there, God is present. But, and here's why clarity matters, God's presence in hell is not the presence of comfort and grace and mercy. In hell, the omnipresence of God is a presence of justice and of wrath. It's his punishment continuously being poured out on people who have sinned against him. On everyone there, including Satan. So now you see the picture. God rules over every single square inch of creation, both in heaven and on hell, both in Clear Lake and in Germany, both in the prison cell and in the courtroom. Whether you're alone in your room or in a gathering like this, God's presence is already there. David continues this in the next verses. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me. David moves from the vertical extremes with heaven and Sheol to the horizontal extremes. The wings of the morning and the uttermost parts of the sea are opposites. One of those points east and the other one points west, and it's poetic language for saying everywhere. No matter where he goes, God is already there waiting for him. There is nowhere that you could ever go where God is not already there waiting for you. He is already at work. He's already holding out his hand of grace and his hand of leading and his hand of comfort. Whether it's in a hospital, when you get a bad diagnosis, or at night when it's just you and your thoughts. There's no mountain, no valley, no funeral, no graveyard, no moments of grief or of pain where God is not already there. In every single one of those moments, God was there. And his hand was guiding you. And his presence was sustaining you, even if you couldn't feel it. And if there's a point of application from this, I just want to pastorally urge you to not take this for granted. Don't ever take this for granted. In the Old Testament, God's presence was a treasured gift beyond anything else. God's presence wasn't always guaranteed in the same intimate way that we have it today. The reason why I can talk so openly about it with such confidence and beauty is only because of Jesus. He experienced the fullness of God's wrath in our place so that we can enjoy the comfort of God's presence forever. The only reason I could say what I just said is because of Jesus. But people in the Old Testament did not have the same access that we do. I think of Moses in Exodus 33. Moses literally begged God. Go back and read it. He literally begged God, saying, if your presence doesn't go with us in the wilderness, then don't send us out at all. Moses knew that the presence of God was the difference between despair and hope. There's all these times throughout the Old Testament when the presence of God was the single greatest encouragement and comfort that God could ever give to his people. To Joshua, this young leader who had to fill in Moses' shoes. God told him, just as I was with Moses, I will be with you. When Joseph was in prison, it said God was with him. When Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were in the fire, the presence of God was with them. When Gideon was hiding and afraid, God told him, I will be with you. When the Israelites wandered in the desert, it was God's presence that sustained them. When David himself was running for his life, when he was living in caves and hiding in the desert, it was God's presence that gave him comfort. What do we remind ourselves every year at Christmas time? His name shall be called Emmanuel, which means God with us. And here's what I want to point out to you. You have something today that all of those people could have only dreamed about. Christian, you have the Spirit of the living God living inside of you. Not just with you, not just around you, but the very Spirit of the living God lives inside of you forever. The God whose presence was a pillar of fire in the wilderness now lives in you. The God who spoke through prophets now speaks directly to your heart through his word. The God who led kings and armies now guides every single one of your steps. The Spirit of the living God lives inside of you. Why would you ever fear? Why would you ever hesitate to trust him? Verses 11 and 12 say this: If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, and the light about me be night, even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is bright as the day, for darkness is as light with you. That reference to darkness isn't just talking about when it's dark outside, even though that's a part of it. He's also talking about the moral darkness that we find ourselves in. If you remember, David was sitting in a pit of darkness for a long period of time, but even there, God saw it all. There was nothing hidden from his view. Even in your darkest moments, even when you think you've fallen too far or drifted too long, God sees it all clearly. And he's there. He doesn't abandon his children. He doesn't forget his children. And don't miss this part. David isn't just using the darkness as a metaphor, but he's using it to set up the very next thought. The darkest place that he could think of, especially back then, is the womb. And God is there too. We talked about God's omniscience, his omnipresence, and now David shows us how both of these truths come together. How God's omniscience and his omnipresence are seen in his hand in creation. Verse 13. For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. Your life, your entire existence is anything but an accident. There is no human life that is accidental. Not a single one. There's no person alive today that is alive apart from God giving that person life. It's impossible. It doesn't happen. God is the author of life. He is the giver of life. There is no life apart from him. And what we see in verse 13 is that God made you intentionally, on purpose. God formed you himself. The Bible describes this as God knitting us together, and that word knitting is a picture of a skilled craftsman, weaving each and every single thread with exact precision. And David says to God, God, that was you at work in my mother's womb. Through every single stage, it was God himself that was forming him. There's not a single life that ever begins without God personally weaving it into existence. And this is where our theology matters. Theology matters a lot. I wish all of us would wear t-shirts that say theology matters, because it does. I wasn't just teaching omniscience and omnipresence just for the sake of teaching them. But based on these verses, I want to show you where the world is fallen. We live in a world where so many people strongly believe that they can play God, where the sacredness of life is seen as something so casual, something that can be played around with or created or controlled or even just discarded. Theology matters. Today in facilities all across the world, doctors and scientists play with and talk about human lives so casually or flippantly as though they don't matter. To give you one example of this, doctors and scientists gather embryos, real human lives that God has created and knit together, and put them in a petri dish, and then offer the parents the choice. Out of all of these children, pick the one that you like best, and that's the one that we'll give you. Treating children like menu options at a restaurant. Picking the ones that they like best and throwing away the ones that they don't want. Or putting them in a freezer. In 2002, in the United States alone, there were 400,000 children sitting in petri dishes in freezers in just our country. And today that number is about 1.5 million. 1.5 million lives, children created by God Himself, sitting frozen in labs, most of whom will never see the light of day. Every single year, about 90,000 of these children will be thrown away in a garbage can. You see what happens when theology gets ignored. This isn't some abstract philosophy. This truth about God forming every single human life, His knowledge about all of our days before we have even walked on this earth, His power and hand at work in the creation of life, and fallen humans treating it as though it's nothing. Every single life from the moment of conception is a child that bears the image of God. It's a life intentionally crafted by the sovereign hand of God Himself. And every human life is worthy of dignity and respect, and protection and love. And yet our culture ignores these truths. Our culture acts as if life is ours to manipulate, ours to throw away, ours to control, ours to take. Psalm 139 speaks completely against this lie. Human life matters because God Himself personally formed every single one of them. The theologian John Calvin said, "The human body is a fabric divinely woven, and the soul is directly infused by the hand of God." Every embryo, every heartbeat, every life divinely woven by the hand of God. Now, going back from the theological to the personal, David views all of this as personal. In verse 14, he says this: "I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made." fearfully and wonderfully. That word fearfully doesn't mean fear in the way that we usually think of it. It means that we should stand in awe or respect of what God has made. When David thinks about the complexity and beauty of the human body, his response isn't casual, it's to worship God for it. Think about the moment, all of the things that are happening in your body, even at this exact moment. Your heart beating every second, your lungs expanding and contracting all on their own, your eyes capturing millions of colors and details, the ears that God has given you to hear his word. Even my little 2-week-old child, from the very second that he came out of the womb, I saw that God had given him abilities in his very nature. His cry to let us know when he needs something, his instinct to eat, to yawn, to sneeze, to hiccup. Just thinking about our own lives and the way that God has crafted you should stir your heart to worship. Then David says, we are made wonderfully. It literally means distinguished or unique. And yes, in one sense, we are all human. We're made in the image of God. We share qualities and traits in common. But in another sense, and more importantly, in the sight of God, there is nobody else like you in the entire universe. There has never been, and there will never be another you. You are completely and utterly unique, not just because of biology or DNA, but because God, with infinite care and wisdom, designed you exactly as you are. Your personality, your abilities, your limitations, your fingerprints, every single aspect of you was handcrafted by God himself. Do you realize how beautiful this truth is? You don't have to waste another second of your life comparing yourself to someone else. You don't have to live in envy or insecurity, wishing you had a different life or different talents or different appearances. God didn't make a mistake with you. He intentionally, carefully, and beautifully crafted you exactly as you are, both for his glory and for your joy. And on the other side of this, every single person that you have ever seen and will ever see was also formed by God himself. How does this change the way that you look at people? Whether it's the person at the grocery store, at work, on the street, every face that you look into is a face that was formed personally by God. Verse 16. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none. This verse takes it even further. David uses the Hebrew word golem, which translates as unformed substance, and that's the earliest imaginable human stage of life. And even then, God didn't see some cluster of cells. He saw a person. And according to verse 16, not only did God form you in the womb, but before you even lived a single day on earth, before you even took your first breath, he ordained every moment of your life. Remember, again, God doesn't learn. God didn't just observe your life unfold. It's not like he looked into the future and learned something about you. He wrote every page. Every high, every low, every trial, every joy, it has all been authored by your Father in heaven. Church, I hope this gives you great comfort. God didn't just set your life in motion and then step back. He planned every day, every victory, every struggle, every joy, every tear. When life seems chaotic, when you don't understand what God is doing, may this be the truth that you hold on to. God is still sovereignly holding every single day in his hands, and nothing surprises him. Nothing slips past him. He is the author of your story, and he's good, and he's gracious, and he is the perfect author. And by the way, we know how the story ends. This truth about God's hand in creation shapes everything. How you view your life, how you view others, how you trust his hand. Every life, every story matters to God. And we see this so clearly on the cross. Jesus died, gave his own life so that you could have eternal life. That's the glory of our Savior. In summary, we've seen that God knows everything about us. He's always with us. He carefully crafted each and every one of us. Praise God for being so, so good to us. Would you pray with me?